Long ago, in a quiet town called Ndamaka, something very strange was happening. Have you ever heard of a dark spirit that steals children's cleverness? Yes, it's true. This evil spirit could take away your brain power simply by touching your school, books or pencils. Sit down and listen carefully, because this story is unlike any you've heard before. Inside the big, beautiful house of the Okafor family, things were very noisy. Mrs. Chika Okafor was shouting loudly at her only child, Emeka. Emeka had just come home from school with bad grades again. Mrs. Okafor waved the report card in the air and shouted, "Emeka, what is this? Every subject, you got 0. 0 in maths, 0 in English, 0 everywhere." Emeka stood trembling, tears rolling down his cheeks. "Mama, I promise, I read all my books. I studied hard, but as soon as I entered the exam room, my head became empty like a drum." His mother shook her head angrily. "Empty like a drum? After all the money your father and I spend on school fees and private teachers? No more playing, Emeka. I'm taking your games and your tablet until you start passing again." Emeka cried harder, trying to explain, but Mrs. Okafor didn't listen. She gathered all his favorite toys and his tablet and locked them away. Emeka attended Sunshine Academy, one of the most famous schools in Ndamaka. Everyone knew Emeka was a very clever boy who always came first in class. But now something terrible had come into his school, and Emeka wasn't the only student losing his cleverness. That evening, when Mr. Okafor returned from his farm, his wife quickly rushed to him. "Do you know Emeka has failed again? All 0s. Our child, who used to be the brightest star in school, now scores nothing. Something is wrong. You must go and talk to the head teacher." Mr. Okafor sighed deeply. "Again? This worries me greatly. But tomorrow I have to take crops to the market. Please, my dear, you go and speak to the school." Mrs. Okafor shook her head firmly. "Is selling yam more important than our son?" Mr. Okafor felt tired from his long day. "Please, Chika, no argument tonight. Tomorrow I'll join you later, but please start without me." She sat down quietly, troubled, thinking deeply about what could be happening to Emeka. The next morning, Mrs. Okafor stormed into Sunshine Academy, her eyes determined. Without knocking, she burst into the office of Mr. Dyke, the head teacher. "Head teacher, tell me what is happening in this school," she demanded loudly. Mr. Dyke looked surprised. "Good morning, Mrs. Okafor. Why are you so upset today?" She slapped Emeka's report card on his table. "Upset? My child used to be the brightest in this school. Now 0s everywhere. Twice this has happened. I need an answer now." The head teacher scratched his head. "We also noticed something strange. Emeka was always top of the class. Suddenly, he became one of the lowest. We plan to talk to you soon. Is everything okay at home?" "Everything is fine in my house." "Your teachers must not be teaching well," Mrs. Okafor argued sharply. Mr. Dyke looked offended. "Our teachers are the best in Ndamaka. Maybe you should find out why your son is having problems." After arguing for a long time, Mrs. Okafor angrily left the office. As she walked quickly out of the school gate, an old cleaning woman named Mama Yuju slowly called out to her, "Madam, please wait." Mrs. Okafor stopped reluctantly, impatiently tapping her foot. "Yes, Mama?" "What is it?" The old cleaner came close and whispered softly. "Something strange is happening. Ever since a new boy joined Emeka's class, things have changed." "What do you mean?" asked Mrs. Okafor sharply. Mama Yuju took a deep breath. "I see things in my dreams. That new student is not an ordinary child. A dark spirit controls him, and he steals cleverness from other children by touching their books and pencils." Mrs. Okafor looked skeptical. "Mama Yuju, thank you for telling me, but I don't believe in such stories." Mama Yuju sighed. "I told you because you are the only mother who always greets me kindly. Please, think carefully. That evening, Mrs. Okafor told her husband what happened at the school and what Mama Yuju said. Mr. Okafor frowned and shook his head. Let's take Emeka to a doctor who helps children with problems in their minds. He will know what to do. A doctor? It hasn't reached that yet, Mrs. Okafor argued. Do you have a better idea? Mr. Okafor asked. Quietly, Mrs. Okafor agreed. The next day, she took Emeka to the special doctor's office and explained everything. After many days of careful checking and talking, the special doctor finally said, Mrs. Okafor, there's nothing wrong with Emeka's mind. He doesn't need any medicine. You must watch him closely and make sure he studies hard and stops playing too much. Be very strict with him. From that day, Mrs. Okafor became very strict indeed. She watched Emeka closely like a hawk. Emeka had no time to play. He could not watch his favorite cartoons anymore or go outside to kick a ball with his friends. His mother made sure he read his books from morning till night. Anytime Emeka complained, his mother showed him a strong stick and gave him a very angry look that made his heart beat faster. Emeka felt very sad and lonely, but he obeyed his mother, hoping this would make things better. Days became weeks, and soon it was time for exams again at Sunshine Academy. Emeka worked harder than ever, studying until late at night. His mother believed the doctor's advice would finally help Emeka pass again, but Emeka was worried. He kept telling his mother, Mama, whenever I enter the exam room, I forget everything. My head becomes empty like an old basket. His mother would angrily reply, You better remember this time, or you will be sorry. Every night Emeka would cry quietly, confused and scared. No matter how much he studied, as soon as he sat at his desk in the exam room, all the words flew away like birds from a tree. He could barely remember his own name. When exam results came out, Mrs. Okafor felt hopeful, believing Emeka would do better. But she became very upset when she saw his report again filled with zeros. Her heart burned with disappointment. She shouted at Emeka, After all I have done for you, this is what you bring home. You have disgraced us. Today I will punish you. Emeka cried loudly, begging, Mama, please, I really tried. My head went empty again. But Mrs. Okafor was too angry to listen. She raised the stick high. Just then, their kind elderly neighbor, Mama Nkechi, heard the shouting and quickly rushed inside their house. Chika, what is happening here? Why are you so angry with this gentle boy? Mrs. Okafor explained everything, her voice shaking. Mama Nkechi, I am tired. Emeka has failed again. Can you believe he wrote nothing in his exams, only his name? All the money we spend, all the hard work, and this is how he repays us. Mama Nkechi slowly sat down, looking at Emeka with gentle eyes. She sighed softly and said, Chika, Emeka was always a very clever boy. I remember how proud you were when he was always top of his class. What has happened now? Mrs. Okafor shook her head sadly. That is the question burning inside me, Mama Nkechi. I just want to punish him until he learns. Mama Nkechi thought deeply and quietly asked, Chika, have you ever asked Emeka exactly why he keeps failing? Mrs. Okafor nodded angrily. Yes, Mama, many times. He keeps saying his head goes empty during the exams. He says he remembers nothing but his own name. Mama Nkechi's eyes became serious. Chika, listen to me carefully. Long ago, when I was a young girl at school, something very similar happened. The brightest students suddenly failed every exam. It even happened to me. Mrs. Okafor looked at Mama Nkechi, surprised. Really, Mama? What could cause such a strange thing? Mama Nkechi looked thoughtful, remembering deeply. As I sit here today, I still remember how confused we were back then. Every time we entered the exam hall, everything we had studied vanished from our minds like smoke in the wind. Sometimes we even forgot our names and matriculation numbers. It was terrifying. Mrs. Okafor leaned forward, her voice urgent. Mama, what happened next? Mama Nkechi continued. One day, all the students who were suffering gathered for prayer meetings. We prayed day and night, asking for help. And then, something unbelievable happened. What was it, Mama? Mrs. Okafor asked, barely able to stay patient. A beautiful girl from our class confessed, Mama Nkechi said. She admitted that she had been stealing our cleverness. Stealing? How, Mama? How is that possible? Mrs. Okafor gasped. Mama Nkechi nodded slowly. My dear, the world is deeper than we know. She confessed that during exam periods, she would borrow our pens and books. Then, she performed dark rituals that transferred all our knowledge into herself. That's why we would forget everything while she remembered it all. Mrs. Okafor felt chills run down her spine. Mama, you mean such evil can still happen today? Yes, my daughter, Mama Nkechi said seriously. That's why it's important to pray over your children every morning. And about Emeka, you must not take this lightly. Ask him carefully about his activities at school. Pray hard for his deliverance. After sharing her story, Mama Nkechi rose slowly and returned to her house, leaving Mrs. Okafor feeling cold and weak. She sat there, thinking deeply. Her mind raced back to the old cleaner's warning about a strange boy in Emeka's class. Suddenly, everything became clear. The next morning, after dropping Emeka at school, Mrs. Okafor set out to find Mama Yuju. She needed answers. When she asked around, she was told, Mama Yuju resigned some months ago. Resigned? Why? Mrs. Okafor asked urgently. We don't know, madam. She said she wasn't comfortable working here anymore and left. Desperation filled Mrs. Okafor's heart. Please, does anyone know where she lives? I must see her. The new cleaner shook her head. I am new here. I don't know. Mrs. Okafor didn't give up. She asked teachers, workers, and even the gateman. Finally, after many hours, the gateman gave her some directions. Without wasting time, Mrs. Okafor drove to the slums where Mama Yuju lived. The road was rough, dusty, and filled with potholes. She parked her car by the roadside and walked through narrow paths until she found the address. She sighed in relief when she spotted Mama Yuju sitting by a small kiosk selling groundnuts. Hurrying to her, she greeted, Good afternoon, Mama. Do you remember me? Mama Yuju smiled warmly. Of course, my daughter. You are Emeka's mother from Sunshine Academy. What brings you here? Tears welled in Mrs. Okafor's eyes as she said, Mama, I need your help. Emeka has failed again. Even after we tried everything, therapy, strict study hours, nothing worked. Please, you once told me about a strange boy. Tell me more. Help me save my son. Mama Yuju's face turned serious. She lowered her voice. My daughter, many would not believe me. But strange things started happening when that boy entered the school. All the brilliant children began failing badly. Some parents even withdrew their children, thinking the school was no longer good. But the truth is, it wasn't the school. It was that boy. Mrs. Okafor listened, her heart pounding. One night I had a terrible dream, Mama Yuju whispered. I saw him sitting in a dark room, walls covered in strange signs. His eyes were white and glowing. Books and pens were scattered everywhere, and he was making dark chants. Mama Yuju shivered at the memory. I woke up scared and knew I had to leave that school. The energy there was not safe. But Mama, Mrs. Okafor asked, trembling, how do I rescue Emeka from this evil? Take Emeka to church for strong prayers, Mama Yuju advised. Warn him never to lend his books or pens to that boy or anyone else. And you must also warn the whole school. Danger still lurks there. Mrs. Okafor left Mama Yuju's house feeling like she carried a mountain on her shoulders. Everything Mama Yuju said matched perfectly with Mama Nkechi's story. But a heavy question weighed on her heart. How would she tell the school about the strange boy? Would they believe her, or would they call her mad? That evening, when Mrs. Okafor returned home, her face was filled with worry and fear. She sat, Her husband down and poured out everything she had discovered, the frightening dreams, the warnings from Mama Nkechi and Mama Yuju, the strange happenings at Sunshine Academy. Mr. Okafor listened carefully, his face growing more serious with every word. "This is not ordinary," he said finally. "We must do something quickly." Together, they decided to reach out to other parents whose children attended the same school. They began making phone calls, visiting homes, and speaking quietly to parents. At church and in the market. To their shock, many parents confessed that their children too had suddenly started failing exams. Bright children who once topped their classes were now struggling terribly. Parents who once boasted about their children's success were now full of confusion and shame. When Mrs. Okafor told them about the strange boy and the warnings she had received, some parents immediately believed her. They had seen the boy too quiet, always borrowing pens and books from other students. Other parents were skeptical. "We don't believe in such superstitions," they said. "Maybe our children are just lazy." But after doing their own secret investigations, those parents began to notice a disturbing pattern. Their children's grades only started falling after the arrival of that boy. Students themselves began to whisper. They remembered how the strange boy always borrowed their writing materials, often smiling kindly, pretending to need help. Little did they know he was gathering something far more precious than pens. With their eyes opened, the parents knew they could not stay silent. They decided to call for an emergency Parents and Teachers Association, PTA, meeting at Sunshine Academy. The day of the meeting arrived. Parents filled the school hall, their faces full of anger, worry, and confusion. The principal, Mr. Dyke, and all the teachers sat nervously at the front, wondering what could cause such a sudden gathering. Mrs. Okafor was the first to stand up. Her voice was firm but shaking slightly from emotion. "Fellow parents, teachers, and respected principal," she began. "We are here today because our children, the brightest in this school, are failing in ways we cannot explain. After speaking to many of you and hearing your experiences, we discovered a common thread: the arrival of a certain new boy." Whispers filled the room. The teachers exchanged worried glances. "This boy," Mrs. Okafor continued, "has been borrowing pens and books from our children. And ever since he arrived, our children's grades have fallen like ripe mangoes in a storm." There was a loud murmur of agreement among the parents. Suddenly, one of the teachers, Mr. K, who taught mathematics, stood up. "It is true," he said, his voice heavy with guilt. "We teachers noticed it too. The brightest students suddenly began failing. We tried to help by awarding extra marks so that it wouldn't be too obvious, but we were afraid to speak out. We didn't know what was truly happening, and we feared losing our jobs." The hall erupted in anger. "Can you imagine?" shouted a parent. "Hiding the truth from us. I'm withdrawing my child today." Another yelled. Mr. Dyke, the principal, quickly stood up, raising his hands to calm the angry parents. "Please, everyone, calm down," he said. "I cannot claim I didn't notice the strange decline in results, but I never imagined it could be something spiritual. I take full responsibility for not investigating deeper." He paused, wiping sweat from his forehead. "However," he continued, "just yesterday, the boy's parents came to my office and withdrew him from the school. They said they were relocating for work reasons. I signed the withdrawal papers without knowing what was truly happening." The parents exploded in another wave of outrage. "So they knew," someone cried. "They knew and ran away. Wicked people," shouted another. The noise in the hall grew louder, parents talking animatedly, some crying out in frustration. After a long time of shouting and arguing, the parents made decisions. Some parents, full of fear, decided to immediately withdraw their children from Sunshine Academy. Others, like Mr. and Mrs. Okafor, thought deeply and said, "If we run to another school, Who knows if a similar problem is there too? This is a good school with good teachers. We must stay and fight. In the end, the majority agreed on a powerful solution. They would bring a strong man of God to the school. Together, they would cleanse the grounds with prayer and anointing. Oil, chasing away any evil that might still be lurking. The next day, all the parents, teachers, and students gathered again in the big school hall. A powerful pastor was invited. He prayed like thunder, his voice shaking the very walls. "Every evil power hiding here," he declared, "leave now." Parents cried, students prayed, and teachers joined hands, all lifting their voices together. The pastor and his prayer warriors walked through every classroom, every hallway, every office, pouring anointing oil and calling upon God's protection. When the prayers were done, a fresh peace settled over Sunshine Academy. It was like a cool breeze after a heavy storm. The school decided to establish a new chaplaincy office, a special place where students could pray, seek counseling, and find spiritual guidance. Weeks later, something beautiful happened. The students who had once forgotten everything began to remember again. Their grades climbed higher and higher, shining brightly like stars in the night sky. Sunshine Academy returned to its former glory. Once again, it became a place filled with the laughter of children, the scratching of pens on paper, and the sweet songs of success. As for Emeka, he found his strength again. He studied hard, prayed even harder, and soon returned to being one of the best students in the whole school. Dear friends, if your child were in a school like Sunshine Academy, what would you have done? Would you have withdrawn them out of fear? Or would you have stood firm and fought back through prayers? This tale reminds us of a deep truth. Evil can hide even in places meant for growth and learning. Never stop praying for your children. Trust their little voices when they share their fears, no matter how strange it sounds. What seems like a child's imagination might be the key to saving them. Thank you for walking through this story with us. If you found wisdom or courage here, kindly give this video a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments, and remember to subscribe for more powerful African tales. Until we meet again with another thrilling and unforgettable story, stay blessed, stay strong, and stay watchful.